Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something, well, potentially transformative. Manus AI. The name itself, Manus, from Sanskrit and Hindi for human, kind of gives it away, right? It's meant to.
Yeah,
Think like a human, process info like we do.
exactly. And what's really interesting, I think, is how it operates. You give it some input, an idea maybe.
All right, yeah, starting point.
Yeah, a starting point. And it immediately starts breaking it down, figures out the subtasks needed.
Okay.
And then from there, it generates these incredibly detailed technical outputs. We're talking database schemas.
Like the actual tables and fields.
Oh yeah, the full structure. And system architectures, mapping out all the components, API specifications, how things connect. And it even goes as far as UI wireframes. For web apps, mobile apps, the whole visual structure.
That's quite a lot. The source material used an example, didn't it? A call center solution.
It did. And the claim, which is pretty bold, is that the level of analysis it provides, well, it could actually surpass what someone with, say, 10 years of experience in that specific area might produce.
10 years. That's a significant claim.
It really is. It's not just, pulling existing data, but synthesizing it in a really comprehensive way.
Okay, so for this deep dive, our mission is clear. Let's unpack Manus AI's capabilities. What can it really do?
And what does its arrival mean? Especially for maybe junior developers, people starting out.
Definitely. Let's circle back to that depth of analysis. You mentioned schemas, architecture, APIs, UI. Can you give us a bit more flavor on those outputs? What makes them so detailed?
Sure. So take the database part. It's not just suggesting use SQL. It's defining specific tables, the columns in those tables, data types, the relationships.
So really the blueprint.
The complete blueprint. Might even suggest indexing strategies, things like that. Then for architecture, it's mapping out, okay, you need this microservice, that message queue, this front-end framework, and showing how they all interact.
And the APIs.
Very specific endpoint definitions. Request formats, response formats, authentication methods. Basically the instruction manual for developers integrating those pieces.
And the UI wireframes you mentioned.
Yeah.
Even things like dashboards.
Yeah, exactly. Like it could map out an agent dashboard for that call center example, a customer portal, maybe even a reseller dashboard if that's part of the system. It shows the layout, the key elements, the data they should display.
It sounds incredibly structured. The source mentioned it analyzes step by step and gives details one by one.
That's the key, I think. It's methodical. It doesn't just jump to a conclusion. It builds the picture piece by piece.
And how does the user interact with it initially? Do you have a long back and forth?
Apparently not so much at the start. You give it the scenario, it might offer its understanding, you accept it, and then it goes off and does this deep analysis, presenting it almost like a finished document.
Okay, here's the part that really jumped out at me. The claim that getting this level of understanding normally takes a technical person. They mention DAs, testers, years and years of constant study.
It's a striking assertion. If true, it points to a massive compression of expertise acquisition time.
Right. Suddenly, you could potentially have access to insights that usually take a decade to build up.
Exactly. It accelerates that learning curve dramatically.
And those dashboard examples, agent, customer, reseller, they aren't just pictures, right? The implication is the AI understands their function, the elements needed.
And maybe even hints at implementation details. Because the specs are so granular, it naturally leads you to think, okay, this gives me a real head start on actually building it.
It provides a foundation.
A very strong one, yeah. The source even floats the idea of it creating boilerplates.
Boilerplates, so like starter code or foundational code structures?
Yeah, essentially pre-built templates based on its analysis. It sets up the basic structure, the connections maybe. So developers aren't starting from a completely blank page.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What about cost? Is this some super expensive enterprise thing?
Well, the source mentioned a starting package at $30.
$30? Seriously?
Seems quite accessible, doesn't it? Though it also mentions other options, presumably higher tiers, maybe for enterprise use.
But a $30 entry point, that could mean very wide adoption potential.
It certainly could. Which brings us right back to that crucial question about impact.
The impact on entry-level developers.
Exactly. Because if this AI can generate that highly detailed foundational analysis...
The kind of work junior devs often do to learn the ropes.
Right. The source is pretty blunt about it. It says AI like this will definitely take over their jobs.
Oof. That's a stark prediction.
It is. It forces us to think about how those entry-level roles might need to change, what skills become more valuable if this kind of analysis is automated.
Absolutely. And it seems Manus AI isn't just for basic systems either. It can handle more advanced stuff.
Apparently so. The text gives examples like designing an architecture using, say, a React front end talking to Python microservices.
Okay, a pretty common stack.
Yeah, but it also mentions designing a full sauce architecture, something that need to hook into SEO tools, payment gateways, maybe Google Ads APIs, analytics.
So it understands how to integrate with external services too.
That's the implication. It can design systems that aren't self-contained but are part of a larger ecosystem. It figures out how those interactions should work, triggering payments, updating SEO data based on user actions, that sort of thing.
And the level of architectural detail.
It seems quite deep. We're talking database system architecture, mapping out billing flows step by step, deployment architecture, how you'd actually run it.
Deployment too, like servers and scaling.
The source suggests it covers that level. It even mentions generating database architecture diagrams, visual representations.
Wow. So it designs these complex systems, creates diagrams, writes the specs. But there's a catch, right?
There is a crucial one. While it can design all this,
It doesn't actually build it.
exactly.
Yeah.
The source acknowledges that the actual coding, the implementation, that still takes significant time and, well, human effort.
So it's an accelerator for design and planning, a very powerful one, but not an end-to-end development replacement, at least not yet.
Precisely.
Wow.
It gives you an incredibly detailed starting point, maybe the first 20–30% of the way there in terms of planning and structure, but the heavy lifting of coding remains.
That's an important nuance. One last detail I found interesting. It apparently doesn't ask many questions up front.
Yeah, it seems to rely heavily on its internal models once you give it that initial scenario. Less iterative Q&A, more autonomous analysis.
Which maybe speaks to its confidence or perhaps a limitation, depending on how you look at it.
Could be. And tied to that, the source makes another bold claim. Nobody else offers this kind of analysis right now.
Really setting itself apart then.
According to this info, yes. A unique proposition in terms of depth and methodology.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Manus AI emerges as this incredibly potent analysis engine, capable of generating really deep, really granular technical specifications, databases, architecture, APIs, UI, the works.
And doing it in a structured, step-by-step way that, it's claimed, rivals or even exceeds years of human expertise in specific domains.
Which inevitably has huge implications for learning, for development processes.
Absolutely. It potentially changes how quickly people can get up to speed, how teams design systems, and crucially, what skills are most valued.
Which leads us to that lingering thought, the one we want to leave our listeners with. If tools like Manus AI become commonplace,
Tools that offer this level of sophisticated analysis and design capability.
how do tech roles, from junior right up to senior architect, need to evolve? What becomes the new essential skill set when the AI can handle so much of the initial heavy lifting in design and specification?
Yeah, what does it mean to be a developer, an architect, a tester, when you have this kind of AI partner? It's definitely something to think about.